So as we head for the second panel discussion, which is multidisciplinary and liberal education, major and minor options and why multidisciplinary approach, I request Dr. Anubha Singh, Professor T.S. Gopi Rethinaraj, Professor Subrata Dey, and Shiju M.V. sir, and Professor Vangal to please come on stage. Our Honorable Deputy Vice Chancellor, Sai University, Dr. Anubha Singh, brings over 26 years of experience in academics leadership and institutional building. She has served as Vice Chancellor of two state private universities in Bangalore, demonstrating exceptional leadership in academic administration, research, advocacy, and internationalization. And about Shiju sir, Acting Dean School of Law, Professor in Law. Dr. Shiju has previously served as Head of Department and Professor at Christ Academy Institute of Law, Bengaluru. He had also been Associate Professor and Head of the Center, Postgraduate Legal Studies at Terry Institute School of Advanced Studies, New Delhi, where he taught environmental law and policy and competition law. We also have T.S. Gopi Rethinaraj, who is our Controller of Examination and expert in sustainability, Professor of Physics, Sustainability and Public Policy, School of Arts and Sciences. Dr. T.S. Gopi Rethinaraj is an accomplished academic and extensive experience in physics and sustainability. He has visiting professorship in countries like Malaysia, Singapore, and also in many other countries. So his experience in physics and sustainability has helped us a lot, and his experience in US and the Illinois and urban campus contributing significantly to the interdisciplinary education. Now, I'll move on to the next professor, Professor Subrata Dey. He is the Director of Student Affairs. Dr. Subrata Dey possesses 28 years of diverse experience. He also heads the School of Arts and Sciences. His experience includes USA, Europe, Australia, and India in business management, virtual and mobile learning, media, communication. His multifaceted career includes role in international marketing, pharmaceuticals, education, management, IT-enabled services. And we also have Professor Vangal. Uma ma'am is basically expert in School of Media. She shares her fascinating journey through journalism and filmmaking, global academia, and directing films and teaching in US and India. Has experience in dynamic media program. The stage is all yours, so you can start your introduction, and also you can start the session. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you
so much,
for
ma'am.
the introduction. Honorable Chancellor, Vice Chancellor, my dear colleagues, students, aspirants of Sai University, parents, guardians, we are truly delighted to be here. We learned a lot about the tech programs of Sai University in the first panel. This panel is focusing on why the future belongs to multidisciplinary and liberal education. But before we dive into the topic, I just wanted to introduce how multidisciplinary this panel is. Dr. Gopi, to my right, he did his undergraduate degree in physics from Bharatidasan University and moved on to US, University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, where he did his master's and PhD in nuclear engineering. He moved on to work in many different universities, as my colleague Sai had mentioned. But you should also know the areas, right from physics to environment, engineering and sustainability, to public policy. He worked in institutions like Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, National Institute of Advanced Science, Bangalore, National NUS, Singapore, and many other universities in the US. Currently, he is the Dean of Academic Affairs and also the Controller of Examination at Sai University. Dr. Vangal, to my extreme right, again, a very multidisciplinary person, formally trained in media studies from University of Madras, went on 2 times as a Fulbright scholar to do 2 different institutions to the US. She's also a filmmaker. In India, she has worked in institutions like, in Madras, I would say. She has worked in institutions like Loyola, also in, what is that? L.V. Prasad School of Filmmaking. Currently, her film was also on the Fulbright tour. It was selected as one of the film which was showcased in various parts of the country in the Fulbright tour of 2024-25. Dr. Shiju, who is the Dean of School of Law, I would say the oldest institution of Sai University. Formally, I would say trained in international law from Jawaharlal Nehru University. He received his PhD. He also has worked in very multidisciplinary organizations like TERI, and also in NUJS Kolkata, National University of Judiciary Sciences. So here itself, though his field is law, but the institution's talking about sciences. Terry focuses a lot on social sciences. He specializes in international law and also in environmental law. And then my other panelist is Dr. Subrata Dey. He has done his postgraduate from IIM Ahmedabad, and then moved on to a different multidisciplinary field altogether, communications, and earned his another master from a university in the US, Wake Forest University. He earned his PhD in media and technology from a very reputed university in Australia, University of Adelaide. And he has worked in industry, he has worked in various academic institutions. He's currently the Dean for School of Arts and Sciences and also the Dean for Student Affairs. I received my formal education in linguistics, primarily in computational linguistics. I have contributed a lot, I would say, in the early 2004 to 2010 to Microsoft Research Lab in India in the field of natural language processing and computational linguistics. When ML was very new to India, I would say, lot of translations or machine translations were happening. So my area of research at that time, I would say, was primarily the statistical annotations of, linguistically, I would say, of Indian languages, primarily a few Indian languages. But then I moved on to business school. I was also a professor at the business school focusing on cross-cultural communication and international human resource management. I served as Vice Chancellor for two different universities, Alliance University and Presidency University. Today, I'm moderating the panel. The format will be a little conversational as we would be taking certain topics I would say, regarding the central theme of the panel today as why the future belongs to liberal education and multidisciplinary education. So without much ado, let me ask my first question to Dr. Gopi. Before I ask that question, I just wanted to say that can a narrow education solve complex global problems? Today we're seeing, the kind of issues and concerns and problems that the world is facing, whether it is because of the trade war or it is because of the geopolitical war. These are just few examples. But then it's not just one discipline which is needed, but a wider perspective is needed. So Dr. Gopi, let's begin by zooming out to a slightly bigger picture. We are living in a time of unprecedented change. We have seen how technology is important, how artificial intelligence is important, but at the same time, big concerns like climate crisis, big concerns like global conflict, the geopolitical situation, at the same time with a rapid technological disruption. So how is liberal education uniquely positioned to prepare students for an unpredictable, rapidly changing global economy?
Thank you, Professor Anubha. So this is a kind of question which I have been grappling with for a long time, about the place of liberal education in preparing the students for an uncertain future. We all know that the 20th century brought unprecedented prosperity. raised incomes, raised life expectancy, and brought so many positive changes to the human society. But along with technology also came a lot of intractable problems. The most notable one is global warming and climate change. So this is one problem that is going to occupy humanity's attention and resources for the foreseeable future, probably the century and beyond. And if you look at climate change per se, it is perhaps the most complex problem one can think of, and addressing climate change requires understanding, skills, and expertise from pretty much every discipline that you can think of, from public health, engineering, science, because the basic understanding of climate change comes from the science, and then law, media. So you can think of any discipline, and that discipline has a role to play in mitigating climate change problem. So I often talk to students that I don't scare them, but I talk to them. Parents should not also be scared that going forward there may not be jobs, there might be only gigs. So we are evolving towards a gig economy. And most of the jobs that will be created in the coming years and decades are not going to be long-term jobs. So these are jobs that can last for a few months or at most few years, and then people will move on to other jobs. So why this gig economy and why liberal education and multidisciplinary education is so well aligned with this future that we are seeing unfolding is that the way we train the students, the way we expect students to learn, the way we ask the students to be open to multidisciplinary learning is something that is going to prepare them for this uncertain future. So if you ask, if the parents have that concern, whether we are training them for their first job, no, we are not training them for their first job. They will get it. It is to face an uncertain future. There are two virtues of liberal education which I see. One is the intellectual value. Certainly parents are not going to be pleased when I say that students should be put in a multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary or liberal learning environment for intellectual curiosity or for whetting their intellectual appetite. It's not going to please them because we heard a parent concern about what about jobs. So the utilitarian aspect of liberal and interdisciplinary education or multidisciplinary education is that it prepares the students to learn effortlessly many disciplines. So that's what the student is doing during the 4 years when he or she is at Sai University. So we are not boxing them in one curriculum. In fact, I was very pleasant to see that the first panel took up most of our task in answering and also explaining the virtue of the liberal and multidisciplinary education, starting from our chancellor, because our chancellor very often highlights this as our USP. How does a Sai University BTech or a BA or a BSc degree differ from a conventional degree? Is that it is the liberal core and the interdisciplinary core that provides the student the flexibility and the intellectual freedom to pursue what they want during the 4 years. And it is this experience that prepares them for an uncertain future. So I would say that it is a liberal and interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary education, which is not only of great intellectual value, but it is also going to be of great utilitarian value in terms of preparing them for an uncertain future. So most of our parents, including, I also have a son who goes to college. So even my parents or my grandparents' generation, after graduating from college, had one job and retired in that job. So the next generation has shifted their jobs 4 or 5 times. You know, everyone can vouch for that. So going forward, it might also be more frequent. So I also see the Gen X, which to be completely different, which our Vice Chancellor mentioned. So they may not be looking for job security. Your children might be looking for more fulfilling jobs than a stable job. So this also is an element that a liberal education and a multidisciplinary education that will ideally prepare you. There are also some myths about liberal arts and liberal education, which I can come later if time permits during the second round, but I would stop here.
Thank you, Dr. Gopi, for addressing that. Well, we all know that India has produced many global, I would say, thinkers who are respected in the world, also at home. We can take many names, starting from, let's say, Amartya Sen, trained in economics, but then focused in public policy, in philosophy, contributed immensely in the development field. Talk about, let's say, in home, I would say homegrown, Raghuram Rajan. At the same time, there are other examples, like, for example, Devdutt Patnaik, trained in medicine, but inspired by literary and cultural theories, literature, culture, moved on to be the very, very prominent, I would say, mythology author of India. Take another example, totally different. The former CEO of Procter and Gamble, Guru Charan Das, again inspired and moved towards, I would say, literature, his ideas, his corporate governance, his ideas about justice, about human flourishing is all very multidisciplinary. So my question is to Dr. Subrata Dey, how do we bridge this perceived divide between humanities and technology?
Okay. Hi, good morning to everyone. Good morning to Honorable Chancellor and Honorable Vice Chancellor. I'll start this answer, Madam, by giving you a quotation which is from a legendary personality called Marshall McLuhan, who way back in the 60s made predictions about the way humanity is going to be shaped by technology. So his quotation, which became very famous and often used in the media circles and people, is human beings shape technology and then technology shapes humanity. So basically what he meant was that technology doesn't come out of nowhere. We human beings only shape technology. And then once we shape the technology starts shaping us. The biggest example is something which all of us in this room actually have right now in your hands or in your pockets, which is the mobile phone. First thing is that if you think way back, 20 years back, this mobile phone came just with the red button and the green button for having some verbal communication. And after that, right now, if you look at your mobile phones, it's a mixture of all possible functions that you can do. So which is basically an integration of technology. And all possible functions means you can entertain yourself, you can do audiovisual communication, you can create audiovisual communication on your own. You are doing reading, you are doing your research, you are doing all possible, you are doing your photography, you are doing socialization, keeping in touch with people through various modes. So everything has started getting integrated onto one single medium, which is the phone. And that is one aspect of it. If you look through it, is all of you, Gopi sir was saying about this liberal arts and how it functions, is that at one point of time I was myself involved in interface design of mobile phones and how education can be made possible. Now interface, I am personally not a core programmer. My basic priorities were in management and marketing. But I led the team of design simply because I had more understanding of the cultural facets of design. So when you see the interface that you are having on your mobile phones, whether Android or Apple phone, it is not only the core technologists who have designed it, coded it. They are just simply coded it, but the design also comes from psychologists, from linguists, from art designers. So if you look at the team, you'll be surprised to know what goes at the back end of the phone that you are using right now. It's a huge number of areas that have coincided together, collaborated in order to produce that design. The biggest example of that is Steve Jobs himself, because one course that he completed genuinely in his life was calligraphy. He is the father of technology that we love so much. But his core love was calligraphy, and that is one of the reasons why Apple phone looks so different from any other phone. Because his brain of his knowledge of calligraphy and art was put into that. So I think my answer is that, and the earlier panel was talking about AI, and Madam herself was partly involved in this. Natural language processing, NLP, and large language models, LLM, two core components of AI, is not possible without linguists, without art designers, without psychologists. The team, every team has to have that. And that is one integration that is there. So there is basically no gap between humanities and technology, I would say like that. In fact, that gap was existing in our mind mostly in India till the 90s. Western universities had progressed much beyond that, is that there was no gap. So technology and humanities go always hand in hand. And if we think that technology is separate, that zone, that era is gone, where now what we have to do is a 360-degree kind of education. So it doesn't matter if you are specializing in English also, digital humanities becomes part of your course, which is integrated with technology. So digital humanities now is a big part of the arts courses that you know. So if you are studying psychology, you study AI along with that, and you bridge the gap between the humanities that were so-called humanities and so-called technology. So there is no one single area in which, and I would say if you go back home, the biggest liberal arts proponent was Leonardo da Vinci himself, which was way back in 500 years back, and whose fruits of designs we are enjoying because he mastered medical sciences, technology, arts, each and everything. So that's the way it goes in bridging the gap.
Thank you, Dr. Subrata. Just to draw from what you said, AI and psychology. So what comes to my mind is a student who's studying AI and also studying psychology and as interdisciplinary courses ethics will be the future AI ethicist. So well, we have seen a lot of examples of multidisciplinary, but I would now like to ask Dr. Shiju, what exactly would multidisciplinary look like in action, especially when we look at the field of law or the, I would say, legal sector. If you could share some examples, some compelling examples from the sector where, bringing together the multidisciplinarity has led to a very strong innovation or some kind of impact that it has made.
Thank you, Dr. Anubha, and good morning, and a warm welcome once again to the open house today. As the acting dean of School of Law, I think that law is one of the tools for addressing the multidisciplinary issues which emerge in the society. You can have many tools, law is one of the tools. If two nations have a problem, you can either discuss it, go to International Court of Justice, or go to war. Okay, so law comes as one of the tools for addressing the issues that multidisciplinary, contextual problems which emerge in the society. Now coming specifically to your question, whether you can give concrete examples, I can give examples from a field of law which is close to my heart, which is environmental law. Professor Gopi already mentioned about climate change. Take for example climate change, how the problem of climate change is being addressed. First of all, who brought to the knowledge of the society the problem of climate change? It was scientists. Any field in environmental law, the problems are brought to the forefront by scientists. Now there are thousands and thousands of problems, but it's only few problems which get attention of the world and you try to address them. For that you need communication, strategic communication. Whose heart will not melt seeing that image of that polar bear standing on the melting ice? Okay, that image you can see that has forced millions of people to think about the problem of climate change and to come out with solutions. What are the solutions that you are looking at? What are the possible solutions? We can say it's where the economists come to the picture. They said that in order to address the issue of climate change, punishment and all may not be the best way. The best way may be to create an incentive system, to create a market. So you created a market like carbon market. Carbon, we thought that is the problem, but you created a carbon market where you can trade on carbon with the clean development mechanism, the carbon trading mechanism that is there. Now comes the issue of morality. How can a person who kills a person pay some money to another person and ask him to go to jail. That is what is happening in carbon market. United States of America emits greenhouse gas emissions and pays Kenya. Okay, now we are emitting, we are polluting the world. You take some money and we will acknowledge it in your portion. For that, you had to take the help of philosophers to justify this type of carbon market that you are creating. So philosophers came in to justify this type of, what is the ultimate solution that you have, what is the ultimate problem that you are trying to address. It is finally, at this stage, diplomats came in. All these countries have to come together, come to the negotiating table in 1992. 192 countries coming together and have diverse issues, diverse interests that they had. They came together. Diplomats came in, diplomacy came in, and finally the law came in through the treaty, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So we can see that you look at any law that is there, we can see that it has evolved through this multidisciplinary approach. Now the question is that whether a lawyer should understand all these things. A successful lawyer, you talk to anyone, whether it's Kapil Sibal or you go to Abhishek Manu Singhvi, any of them, you go to them, they will tell you that if you want to present this case before a judge, you should have understanding, some understanding of what you are presenting. If it's a technological issue, you should have that understanding. So I think that the multidisciplinary curriculum that we have in Sai University helps a student to address these issues and to be an effective lawyer. If you are not taking the law program at Sai University, I think that a basic understanding of law, when you take a minor in law, will help you to understand how law as a tool is trying to address the complex issues that the modern society is bringing in.
Thank you, Dr. Shiju, for taking us there. Recently the School of Law organized, I would say, a symposium or a seminar on nuclear technology law. Rather than me telling about it, it's best that you hear from Dr. Shiju as how multidisciplinary it was and how impactful and important is that area.
So nuclear law again. Nuclear law, we are speaking about nuclear science, we have heard about nuclear law. You might have, if you have listened carefully to the budget speech by Nirmala Sitharaman this year, a major announcement by the finance minister was that we are going to allow private participation in the nuclear sector. And nuclear energy has a lot of importance when you speak about climate change. As a green energy technology, nuclear energy has been promoted. Now, Sai University for the last 3 years is organizing an international certificate program on nuclear energy and law, for which we have experts coming from International Atomic Energy Agency, Nuclear Energy Agency. We have experts from India's regulatory AERB, and we are blessed in a way that we are next to Kalpakkam, where our one of the first nuclear plants, our power plants, are located. So we have the experts coming from Kalpakkam, Nuclear Power Corporation Limited, etc. So when you look at how this program is structured, it is starting from the issue of the nuclear science, how the nuclear technology is there. So we have faculty in Sai University who are experts in that. Professor Gopi is there, Professor Subrata Dey is there. Then we are looking at the legal issues which are involved there, the financial issues, the insurance issues, environmental issues. All these are covered in a 1-week program with a final site visit to Kalpakkam nuclear power plant. So I think that, thank you for bringing this out, bringing this up. It is a wonderful area wherein you can see that experts from different fields come together and students get a holistic perspective about nuclear energy. It is not only, nuclear energy is a contested field. It's not only pro-nuclear people that we are bringing in, we are also bringing in people who are anti-nuclear, okay, who are against this, who flag these issues. So the students get a holistic view about nuclear technology and nuclear law.
Thank you, Dr. Shiju, for giving a glimpse of what multidisciplinary education looks like in Sai University. Now let me draw your attention to School of Media. But before I ask a question, let's talk about some of the personalities. If you remember, Barkha Dutt studied literature, moved on to journalism. Known for her compelling journalism on very important issues like Kargil War or the pandemic. Let's talk about a filmmaker, let's say Meera Nair. Studied sociology, moved to studying filmmaking. Known again for very compelling films on social and cultural narratives, also on themes like feminism. Today, media is facing disruptive, I would say it's augmented by disruptive technology, but at the same time is also facing a lot of changes because of misinformation or the alternate news or the fake news. So let me ask Dr. Uma, well, in this environment of where we are in the media landscape today, how do we prepare students of media not just to survive and lead, but to lead with integrity, to lead with innovation, and to lead with insight?
Thank you, Dr. Anubha. Good morning and welcome to the Open House, Sai University 2025. In a way, I'm going to go back to what Dr. Dey had said about Marshall McLuhan. And his vision of a global village is a reality today. And in that interconnected world, everyone is a communicator today, again, because of the mobile phone. How did you all keep yourself occupied during the pandemic? 6 months, all of us were indoors. What did you do? I can't hear. Okay, mobile? Netflix? Sorry? Learning? How were you learning? Online classes? Yeah, there you go. So you realize that we are all so casual about media and technology, but the fact is that without that media, technology-enabled media content that you were consuming throughout those 6 months, we would have died of boredom. Not the pandemic maybe, but definitely we would have died of boredom. So in that sense, I think in the last 2 weeks, we've been witnessing literally the words that Dr. Anubha started the question with: disruption, disinformation, misinformation, misleading, cross-border communication. And we realize that it is so easy to manipulate this technology. It is so easy to create content. Anybody can put anything out there today. But the point is to create minds who have that ability to critically evaluate, understand the how and why of media, and not just the technology, but also to understand how to leverage that technology for better use for humanity. Considering all of the problems that many people have already flagged here on the stage and off the stage, we are all aware of so many multiple cultural and psychological issues that we are all facing today in a world of shifting values. Media entrepreneurs, media thinkers, thought leaders, if you want to call them that, will be created, hopefully, in the Media School of Media at SIU, because the curriculum has been designed, curated very carefully to make sure that while we give them the strong foundations, we also follow a basic principle of journalism. So when we first start studying journalism in universities, they tell you, they start you off with one statement. They say you need to know something of everything, but everything about something. Which means, yes, you have to be a generalist, multidisciplinary. You have to know enough about all aspects of human life to be able to make an intelligent comment on it, to have conversation on it, to have an opinion on it. But you also take the effort to specialize and know everything about one thing. Which means then you decide, well, this is going to be my field of work, but how do I do this ethically? How do I make a real difference? How can I be the change I want to see, right? And so that kind of empowerment happens only when you have knowledge, conceptual understanding, but also multiple skill sets and an exposure to multiple disciplines. So for instance, let's say a student at the School of Media at Sai U wishes to become a science reporter. They can happily go and take minor in, let's say, in biotechnology. They could minor in psychology and microbiology, different aspects of science, and then become a specialist in science reporting if they want to be a journalist. Let's say the student is interested in designing games. Remember, we have an entire generation that lives off games, and it's very lucrative too. So it's a serious career today. There are game designing labs. So somebody working in the School of AI with the School of CDS and media could actually be the designer of the future and work with the School of Arts and Sciences, come up with the kind of psychological impact those games could have on the players. You remember all those little disclaimers that they'll tell you, this could be addictive. If you play online rummy, watch it, right? So making sure that you're somewhere also aware of what you're doing, negative also. And we also have some components in the curriculum where we insist on a community engagement learning component, which will then be demonstrated through a public service campaign, aligning with the university's vision where we talk about being educated not just to become an employee somewhere, but to become an innovator, to become a change maker, and make a difference to society.
Thank you so much, Dr. Uma. So let's address the elephant in the room. Liberal education is, it often faces skepticism. It's sometimes seen as impractical, sometimes seen as luxury. So my question is to Dr. Gopi, what are some of the misconceptions and myths about liberal education, and how does Sai University frame it or reframes it?
Thank you. There are two sets of concerns. One is a total lack of awareness of what liberal education is. This is what we find when me and my colleagues go for outreach programs, admissions and outreach program, because we have to first educate the students and the parents about what liberal education is and what it will do to their kids and why it is useful and so on. And then there are also parents who are aware of liberal education but have a misleading notion about what liberal education is. This goes back to the history of liberal education, especially as it was offered in the US. So if you look at some of the boutique colleges that are known for offering liberal education, not only the US and also in Cambridge and Oxford, if you look at the profile of students who went to these colleges, typically they came from upper class or the kids of the super rich who need to get a degree, and often they were pursuing worthless degrees. And what were these worthless degrees? Because this is the comment or the criticism that came from English literature, philosophy, linguistics, and many other disciplines which were considered worthless or unemployable. So while there was some merit in that criticism, because many of the, if you look at the median salaries of many liberal arts graduates, they were far lower than a typical tech graduate who was coming out of a second or a third year institution compared to the liberal arts graduates who were coming out of the Ivies. So this actually was a huge deterrent when universities like Sai University was founded, because I want to qualify that what we offer is not just liberal arts, it's liberal education. You can also call liberal STEM education. So we want to use the liberal arts creatively and integrate it with employable skills. So while students are pursuing BTech or other degrees, licensed professions like law and other skills, we always insist that our students learn or acquire some employable skills at the end of the 4 years. But what liberal arts does is it enriches the mind, because while criticism that they are worthless is not entirely true. What it does is it enriches, it makes an engineer or a technologist a better technologist, because a technologist who has taken a course in philosophy or literature or in the liberal arts would certainly be able to think out of the box, or will have some sense of aesthetics, which is completely missing in today's engineers. Otherwise, we will not look around the city, very ugly looking buildings, and the way we design our public infrastructure, absolutely no sense of aesthetics. So even when we design products, this element of aesthetics comes from an appreciation that is acquired through a liberal education, especially the exposure to the arts and the humanities. So I see a huge value in a student, even a student pursuing a BTech, in getting this dose of liberal arts. And what SAIU's curriculum, as my colleague Dr. Ram mentioned clearly, is that since computer science is the largest contingent of the university, it is always computer science plus X. So this X can be anything. We have BTech students who have graduated with a minor in international relations. We have one BTech student who is minoring in English literature. We have many computer science students who are minoring in economics, psychology. Certainly, it will open up multiple career paths besides the traditional job offers that they can explore. The other element which I often see is, after 4 or 5 years, students get bored, because boredom is something that students, a professional who has spent 5 years in the job market often finds. I've had many students who have dropped lucrative careers and pursued public policy, or pursued environmental policy, or pursued a completely different career. So this actually comes as a result of complete lack of exposure to multidisciplinary learning during their undergraduate education. So in that way, we are sort of future-proofing our SAIU students by not only preparing them for an uncertain future, but also preparing for another potential career if they find boredom after 4 or 5 years in the specialty in which they are trained. So this is the myth that I wanted to sort of dispel, that liberal arts is not something that is considered worthless. It is something that is going to enrich whatever you are going to do. And in that way, what Sai University offers is not just plain vanilla liberal arts education. It is a liberal education, as the title of the panel clearly suggests.
Thank you, Dr. Gopi. So if you look at the WF World Economic Forum's Job Future Skills Report of 2025, the top 3 skills are analytical skills, creative thinking, adaptability. Today, one of the, I would say, Guardian here was talking about Big Fours and the consulting firms. All these consulting firms and the Big Fours are also hiring liberal arts graduate because they bring in these kind of skills. Designing a robust liberal education curriculum isn't easy, especially when you are trying to balance the depth in a discipline, but also you're trying to bring in the breadth across fields, because we're talking of multidisciplinary here. So let's focus on, and my question is to Dr. Dey, that from your academic experience, what does a well-designed liberal education look like? And how do we in Sai University ensure that students graduate both versatile and grounded in a discipline, and what are some majors and minor options?
Hello. Yeah. Before I just get into this course curriculum, pedagogy, or major minor options, I think this I can see from the last panel also there is obviously a concern amongst parents is that where does all this lead to, liberal education or non-liberal education? Does it ultimately make you employable, or does it give you the return on the investment? That's a genuine concern obviously all of us have. I would say, first of all, give some particular examples to prove my point in the points that we have been trying to make. I have myself gone as a recruiter to different colleges for recruiting during the placement. And I have also gone through placement in my own life at IIM Ahmedabad and before that also. One of the things you must have noted is that, which is common experience that I have seen. The students who actually cap the best grades in the classes are not, more often than not, are not the people to get the best jobs. I have seen that at IIM Ahmedabad. Our topper did not get the most highest paying job. And the ones who actually do the best, and you can think back in your college life, the ones who do the best are the ones who actually are multifaceted, whom the corporates actually see that, okay, I can shift this person from project A to project B to project C, without much of transition problems. So that flexibility is something. So I always looked for that flexibility when I went for recruiting students. A student should not be limited just to knowing the biology or botany subject that person knows. Should also know a little bit of Excel, should also know a little bit of PowerPoint, so that and something about the general knowledge, awareness about the whole world, and that is what that person is going to be ultimately of use. So I'm not going to use that person just for the botany knowledge ultimately. And and I saw that in my own experience also, which will bring down to the curriculum, is that my parents basically objected a huge lot when they found that MBA from IIM Ahmedabad is going for filmmaking and media and communication. So I had a tough time explaining to them at that point of time, 25. Today no one questions that, because a marketing person basically should have knowledge about media. Without the knowledge of media, a marketing person with theoretical knowledge in the classes from Peter Kotler's book is of no use. Because social media management is one of the critical components, media management critical component of a marketing person. So at Sai University, what we have done in terms of course and pedagogy is nothing from our own brains. It's basically what the industry or the world requires. That is exactly backward integration is what we have done. In the same, I'll give you a brief way, very simple way of understanding the courses. Assume there are 4 circles. There are 4 circles. Number one circle separate was a major. Because you will keep hearing everyone saying major, minor, major, minor. So let's, easy way to understand. One circle is major, one circle is minor, one circle is interdisciplinary course, and another circle, which is a ... circle, which may or may not be there, is the audit. So there are 4 basic circles. Now assume that you want to do the first major circle. That is your major. For example, you are a rice consumer, so that's your major food, rice. Now, does that mean that you will never consume rotis or idlis or dosas? So you will also have minor interests. So along with the major, which is your biology or psychology, you will also say that today's world requires a psychologist to also know something about the AI, how AI actually uses the data sets to make conclusions. Without that, you will not be of use. So you have a minor which you are doing in AI. Or a psychology student can say, I want to also study neuroscience, for example, which has close. So now the circle basically has an intersection. Now the circles are not separate, they have intersections. So along with the major, which forms 50% of your credits. So if your credits in 3 years is 108 or 120, approximately 50% will be your major interest, which is psychology. The minor interest area will occupy around 24 credits, which is basically 4 credits per course, which means 6 courses around. That is your minor interest. So the minor interest of a psychology student can be AI, can be law. Why should a psychology student get into law? Simply because criminal psychology is an important aspect which has intersection with law. Psychology has intersection with media. Psychology has intersection with biology, neuroscience. So every subject you will see has some intersection with another subject. So that's minor. Then comes interdisciplinary courses. What do I mean by interdisciplinary courses is that irrespective of whether you are law or AI or an engineer or media student, there are certain abilities that you have to have which is you cannot function in today's world without having some knowledge of critical thinking. You cannot function without some communication abilities. You are great in your class, in your psychology, but you cannot write an email which will be functional. That's a problem. You cannot write a note which is going to be gazetted in some notification. So if you cannot do that, that's a problem. So these are writing skills which is required across the subject. So we have interdisciplinary subjects, core course, interdisciplinary core course, which is mandatory for everyone. There will be 7 courses, mandatory for everyone irrespective of the subject. And that you do, and there you do the things which are common for everyone. And the last is the audit course, which is out of your choice. You can take a course, any course which you may not take a credit, but you can attend the classes of the particular course just out of your interest. So these are basically the 4 circles and the way we have structured the curriculum.
Thank you, Dr. Dey, for explaining in a way that liberal education is not theoretical, it's practical. Complex problems that we are addressing in the beginning, climate change, or public health, or misinformation, or ethics in AI cannot be solved by technology alone. They require ethical judgment. They also require the historical context. They require the behavioral insight. So liberal education trains students to handle this complexity, the ambiguity, and also the human factors. But let's talk specifically about law. Dr. Shiju, how do you think that subjects like or disciplines like economics or philosophy or sociology or even technology enrich legal education? And how are we doing it at Sai University School of Law?
Yeah, it may be when the Chancellor was addressing you in the morning, he was mentioning that except School of Law, which is tightly regulated by Bar Council of India, so we have our limitations when it comes to how much we can tap into the liberal education curriculum at Sai University. But it may be interesting to know that legal education was the first field in India to switch to multidisciplinary mode. In the 80s, when we started the 5-year integrated law, the students were required to study, in addition to law, the students were required to study, still today, they have to study political science, sociology, economics, history, all these subjects. So law, as I mentioned, as one tool for bringing in peace in the world, you have to have a multidisciplinary understanding of the problems. Now coming specifically to how in Sai University we are tapping into this liberal education model, multidisciplinary model, what we are doing is that we have understood, we are very clear from our beginning that Sai University School of Law will not be one of the same kind of law schools which exist today. Around 10,000 law schools exist in India today. We will not be one of them. We wanted to be different, and we were trying to look at what are the major issues which the legal sector faces. We understood that there are 3 which need special attention. One is technology. Technology is changing every aspect of human life, including legal education. So we have a specialization in technology law, wherein we introduce our students to the basics of technology. As I mentioned earlier about the nuclear law course, we start with a basic of the technology. So a student who is dealing with the legal issues in blockchain cannot deal with it without understanding what blockchain is or what AI is. So we have that in our curriculum. Second is that we also bring in a lot of emphasis on different sets of dispute resolution today. Many a time it may be interesting to note that today many of the disputes are resolved through technology. It is through technological tools that these disputes are resolved. So we have our curriculum is designed in such a way that the students get an exposure to these aspects also. So in that sense, we think that the curriculum at Sai University encourages students to have that multidisciplinary mind. We equip them with the necessary tools necessary to address these issues.
Thank you so much. I would also like to just highlight that if a student wishes just to focus on the core disciplines and just focus on one major and focus on core disciplines, that's also a possibility in the, I would say, curriculum framework at Sai University, irrespective of a school or a major that a student chooses. So moving on, I would like to also ask now, probably this will be our last question of the panel, to Dr. Uma, that in today's fractured world, if I may call it, reporting on international conflicts, even I would say our own country conflicts, we've seen that in last few days, requires more than just access. It demands sensitivity, it demands context, it demands a deep understanding of culture and influences. So, how to navigate such complexity and how to tell such stories with responsibility and depth. How do we train our students in the School of Media, Dr. Uma?
Thank you, Dr. Anubha. Yeah, I think those of us who grew up in Chennai, for us, the early morning cup of coffee with the Hindu is like a ritual. I hope you've seen in the last 2 days, the Hindu published something, retracted it, and submitted an apology to its readers. This itself is more than enough to tell us that the media landscape is now a landmine. You have to be completely sensitive to not just getting the news first, but also getting the right news and not just, be trigger happy in that sense. So the media school has 3 streams. So we have visual communication, we have media studies, and we have film and TV. And like Dr. Anubha said, yes, we do allow, especially in the media school, a lot of the skill sets have to be taught. So in a way, the major can be like so overpowering, they may not have too much time to explore all the other disciplines. But by its nature, media studies is multidisciplinary. We draw literally from every field and put that into our frameworks, into all our courses. And so in a way, we prepare the students to have that 360-degree, literally the eye has become the camera today. And we literally teach the students, hopefully, to do the 360-degree study of every little piece of data or information or image that they get. So the idea is to say you don't just become a communicator or a filmmaker or a game designer or an advertising professional, but you actually understand the implications of what you're putting out there. You understand context, you understand the complexity of the issue, and when you present, you make sure you have taken every effort to verify all your sources, to credit all the information to the resources. And so in a way, it is not just good journalistic practice, but media professionals today have to understand that there is a lot of demand from the audience. The audiences are today no longer passive who just took whatever was given as the final word. Today you have people contesting every little piece of information out there. WhatsApp University, one of the biggest banes of technology, in the sense that anybody can send you a little piece of information and people start sharing it immediately. You go to a film theater, within seconds there are young people who are dismissing a film that's taken people 10 years to make, right? So today the power is with the audience, and the audience is grappling with multiple issues. And so as media professionals, to be sensitive to that, which means then we do literally apply various lenses to those information or images, and then refract it, reflect upon it, and then represent. So especially in a very global connected world, cultural identities become very important. Ethnic identities are very important. Conflict situations, we are all seeing how the media has been leveraged during the Gaza conflict. And how for some time they stepped up the conflict, they kept showing, bombarding us with images, and today we are not bothered. Because the media decided, we'll move on. Let the children in Gaza die, right? So those agendas are often created by some media outlets because they probably didn't have that 360-degree training to look at information with all aspects. Because a lot of times the marketing imperative is to be the first off the mark, the first information, literally the scoop. Today it's not that. Even if you are late, it doesn't matter as long as you are more sensitive and more reliable. So integrated marketing communications today makes it a fact that the revenue stream is more important than the rightness of the information. But at SIU, we hope to train students to learn law, media law and ethics, to learn the psychology and demands of the audience today and address audiences, so which means they will do reception analysis, they will study audience behavior, while also understanding marketing imperatives. They're not going to only be guided by that, because hopefully they'll also do some philosophy, they will do some international relations, they will understand that, for instance, I'm sure all of you know that a legendary journalist that Dr. Anubha had mentioned earlier, Barkadat, was pulled up during the Mumbai terror attack because she was revealing sensitive information, maybe not deliberately, but definitely it was irresponsible of NDTV to have done that. So we're going to teach students to critically evaluate how you do your media practice. It's not just acquiring the knowledge, acquiring the skill sets, but how are you going to use those skill sets with sensitivity and understanding, with a global understanding. The fact that today your audience is not just your reader, it is the whole world. Everything you put out there is for global consumption today. So I think that is where we will differ from a lot of other media schools, because, for instance, my very first film was not made for an audience. It was made for the Supreme Court to highlight a particular case in Udupi, in Karnataka. So a lot of times we make niche products for niche audiences, but we also understand that you don't control who it gets to after a point. It's out there in the wide world. And so you realize that you need to keep that footprint sacred. So we again have a little quote. We say, fact is sacred, opinion is free. This is something we've learned in journalism and in media schools. And so we understand that you cannot play around with facts. So how you present that fact is up to you, innovatively, creatively, but keeping that spark alive, honing that spark, but using that spark to ignite change is what we will focus on at the media school.
Thank you, Dr. Uma, and my other panelists for the insights on the schools that you're heading and also the department that you're heading, and on the theme. So